Andy B here. We are still happily at Christians Against Poverty office in Bradford. If you're looking at a map thinking where's Bradford, find Birmingham, go north and you'll sort of hit Bradford eventually if you're looking at a big globe. Now, we've had some great guests so far working in different departments, and just to be clear, my next guest is not related to me. Her name is Alison Berry. You may have heard an interview we did a while ago, but hello, Alison.
Hello, it's great to meet you here, because This isn't my natural habitat either.
No, well, I was a bit surprised to see you, because I know you're from down south, and this is not in the south.
It's definitely not in the south, so no. I am based down in the south, but was up here for our staff conference earlier this week, so it was great to meet you again, in person, not online, having met about a year ago at Big Church Festival, in person, in the south. Yes. I've gone north, gone south, I'm back here again, and it's a delight to welcome you here to our head office.
Yeah. Which has been a brilliant day so far, and we've still got another 3 hours yet, which is great. So I know we've interviewed you before, but for people who haven't heard of you before, just give us, what is it you actually do with CAP down south?
Right, so I am the Regional Director for Christians Against Poverty for the whole of the south of England. So that's my title or job role, but actually I am there as a regional servant to serve our incredible church partners that day in, day out are interacting with some of the neediest, most vulnerable people in their communities, to champion them, to encourage them, to just serve them, to run their services really well, whether that is debt help, whether it's life skills, a job club, or money coaching, or indeed they're engaging us in another way. So then I have an amazing team of area partnership managers that are all based locally as well, and then they can just really get alongside those churches and the incredible local CAP teams that are just serving their hearts out with compassion. So I'm there as a champion, a cheerleader, bit of strategy to see where are the gaps, where are there some often whole communities or even towns or cities which sadly don't have the sort of local church wraparound support for people going through financial difficulties. So I will then be looking to see, well, is there a great church that has got the heart, and then just connecting them and equipping them so that they can get started with this work.
I want to come back to the conference in a minute, but the different people I've spoken to, either on air or as I've been given a tour around the building, I love the sense of joy and purpose and hope, which just, I don't know how to put it into words that make sense, but it sort of effuses, it just naturally comes out of people, this joy of working together, serving together, being together. And I love that. I also want to come back to how you got involved with CAP, because I like the story.
Yes.
But let's just come back to the conference. So what's the CAP conference? What's that all about?
So it was a CAP staff conference, so people that are effectively paid by Christians Against Poverty as their job. It was a chance to get together to look at, I guess, where we're going for the future, and actually that is really exciting because next year we'll be celebrating our 30th anniversary as an organisation. It started in 1996, and it's a chance to relook at actually what is a very important part of our history reaching 30 years, because obviously we are Christians Against Poverty, we are all followers of Jesus, and Jesus started his ministry when he's 30. So we've got a sense of, we've had a lot of years of building to this point, and actually this is a new time. The UK church is very different, the communities are very different, lots of our clients are often very different, have multiple complexities and vulnerabilities. So it was a chance to get together and regroup, to look at that, to hear from some of our incredible trustees. And for anybody listening that is a trustee of a Christian organisation or a charity, all power to you, because that their role is so key. So yes, it was multi-purpose. We worshipped together, which was incredible too. And actually, I think lots of us, myself included, and talking about how you see that joy in this building, that I had a real sense that our work is our worship. That God actually looks on this and go, we're not here because this is a job. Because if it was a job, I could be doing something that I used to do in previous lives very easily. But yeah, it's not a job. this is part of the way that I serve God in the world.
Do you know, the 30 thing I hadn't clocked? 1996, but I did, because we got married in 96, so we got our 30th anniversary next year. But I hadn't thought about the Jesus and the 30 part. That's a really interesting little link.
Yes, it is. And I think all organisations go through different waves and different seasons. And actually it is important to go, where have we come from? And celebrate that. But where are we going? Because God is always on the move. He's always asking us to change, to serve him better. And as an organisation, we're all about transform lives. But that includes us too. It's for the people that work here as well. We are transformed by doing this work. Amen. As much as anything else.
Let's come back to the story about how you got into CAP. We've interviewed you, so I know the story, but I want to hear it again. What I remember was you were working for some pretty impressive companies, and then you found yourself at CAP. So just take us through the story of what you were doing that led you into working for CAP.
Well, sort of my CAP journey started about 12, 13 years ago. I trained to run what was then called the CAP Money course, actually now known as Money Coaching, sort of helping people with budgeting. So I trained with some people from my church to do that, and went to this training day, heard our founder John Kirkby speak and stuff, and was very inspired. And I found myself in the car journey home saying, I think we should be setting up a debt centre. And I didn't really know anything about debt help, to be honest, and I certainly didn't think that there was any need in a relatively affluent part of Surrey that I live in for debt help. But we carried on and we explored that, and about a year later we set up a debt centre in Egham, which is still running today, which is amazing. And so I then carried on supporting that centre, but as a volunteer, and carried on doing lots of money coaching in different settings. And meanwhile I was working for Mars, the chocolate company, in Slough, and very happily pursuing this commercial career of mine. And eating chocolate for a living is a good gig, honestly. I can recommend it. It was great. My children still bemoan the fact I haven't got boxes of free chocolate at home. But yeah, so I did that and thought that CAP would always be a volunteering passion of mine, and I was really happy with that. And then it just got to the point when God took my joy away, back to that word joy again, and I didn't really know what it was, but God took my joy away from working in that space, and I didn't really know what next. Actually, I didn't feel right to leave, and I didn't know what I was going to do next. And then, because I followed CAP on all of our social media channels, up popped this role for working, and you had to live in the southeast where I happened to live. And I obviously knew the organisation, I'd been to some of their conferences, training and stuff. So yes, it just was amazing. And then, yeah, I'm a big believer that nothing in God's economy is wasted. And actually, he's planted in me a lot of, obviously, commercial experience, and I think a real, I guess I'd call it a customer focus, because I used to work with some very big customers, selling chocolate to them. But in terms of then the way that I can bring that in to serve the church and to just understand their local setting, you know, I've seen God draw so much of that through into this new place, and it is a real joy. And as I say, it's now part of my worship. Not quite as tasty, the freebies aren't as good, honestly, but you know, it is amazing. God has more than compensated.
Amen to that. Joe did buy me a drink earlier. It's fine, that's a compensation, that'll work for me.
I'm from a northerner as well. He bought you a drink, my goodness, wow.
He's a good man. So what's a day-to-day role for you? What was a normal day? Is there a normal day, or are they very different?
They are very different. So obviously I'm working with an entire set of many different centres and churches that are all very different. There are things that we often do. So there's local training, we're recruiting new teams to join churches to make sure that those centres can be really sustainable. Making sure that the service that we're providing centrally from this support hub is really, really good. So a lot of communication, encouragement, and then I would also do, visits, travelling around, meeting with potential new church partners too, to sort of inspire and encourage them to get involved, and really to listen to just how we can serve them better, because being a church leader is a hard role, and they have a lot of pressures, obviously, to do with volunteers and finance and stuff. So really understanding how we can work well together. And I think hearing the stories locally, and then being able to share them to encourage others, sharing ideas, best practice. And obviously I have a team that work with me, so obviously all of the things that a line manager would hopefully do really well.
If a church is listening and saying, okay, well, this CAP thing sounds quite good, and we'd like to help people with debt, but we haven't got the capacity or the time or the resources, how would you encourage them to think, this, not only could we do this, but we should be doing this? How would you, I suppose, help them to understand the role of CAP for them in their local community? Yeah,
I think if any church is realising and seeing the need in their community, honestly, that's the first step. And actually, the beauty of partnering with an organisation like Christians Against Poverty is that debt help is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. That in itself is quite easy to say, but is quite scary, obviously. And so if a local church wants to help people in debt or with their debt, then we as an organisation are taking on that entire risk and responsibility. So we're providing that expert debt advice and the whole regulatory framework that goes alongside it. So what the church can do is the bit that they do phenomenally well, which is to come alongside, to walk the hard miles, to provide the support and the journeying with people, and to connect them in with what people are most often searching for, which is community and hope. And then over and above that, we then provide all of the training and equipping for the local debt coaches that are then based locally in that church, in order that then they can work very collaboratively and in partnership with our debt help team that are based in the support hub. So we're just providing that enabling and equipping and effectively taking the risk away, in order that then the church can do what the church does really well. And I think when it works in partnership like that, you get to see just this beautiful transformation that happens in several places. And almost first and foremost, you see the transformation of the church. And some of our long-standing church partners, the longest one in the southeast, they're going to celebrate their 20th anniversary next year in Bracknell. That's where that centre started. But they testify to how it changed them as a church in terms of the sort of people that are then attracted in to be part of community are very different than the church used to look. So it has challenged them and changed them to be this beautiful work of the church, because so many of the people that desperately need help with debt, for example, or other areas, they probably would never walk through the doors of the church for another reason, but they have cried out for help in a particular area, and then they've been drawn in and discipled and have then often gone on to help other people. So there's a transformation that's going on right at local church level, that the volunteers that get involved, and I can testify to this, when I got involved in serving people that needed help locally, I thought that I was getting involved to help them. Actually, God changed me. He changed me. He broke my heart for what breaks his.
Amen.
You're seeing people that literally your neighbour, in case, that I never would have connected with, and you get to do that. So it changed me, and our local volunteers and other local CAP workers all testify that it changes them. Their faith grows. They see miracles in people's living room when they pray for healing, and it happens right there, and they never would have got to meet that person otherwise. So yes, there's transformation of the church, there's transformation of individual Christians who get involved in this, and it becomes part of their own discipleship journey. And then you have transformation of people that never would have been isolated, lonely, struggling, and they go from that to having hope and ultimately knowing Jesus and a new family. And those 3 levels of transformation is just a beautiful thing to see.
It's transformative of communities though, isn't it? Because it's, having been through debt, it makes you feel isolated. We reached out to a church because we didn't know the area very well, and they immediately thought we were just asking for money, and we said, we just want prayer, we're struggling. And they were very closed off. I guess they didn't know what to do about debt, and they made assumptions about what we wanted, and what we needed was just someone to listen to us and cry with us, because our business was in tatters and our life as we knew it was gone, and we didn't know what the life was going to be. We just wanted someone to walk with us. So they evidently did not know what to do, so they were quite standoffish and quite cold. Other churches were much better, but I think that's because other churches have got a mindset of helping people in debt. Perhaps they now have a better understanding of it, but it doesn't take a lot to listen, which is something I've heard so many times recently with so many different ministries I've managed to interview. The one thing that's missing in society is the ability to listen, because we're all in a rush and no one has time for anybody. But you don't do it with an agenda. Earlier on, I think someone said we have a agendaless love.
Yes.
There's no agenda with the love. It's just agenda free. And I loved that idea of just helping people to listen and dealing with debts. And Katie, I was chatting to earlier, her story is going to church and trying to get the kids into Sunday school, but realising she has to stay for them. And then finding Jesus through the church, through CAP, through, it's a beautiful testimony of when we do good stuff as a church, it's not just good, it's more like God good, if that's bad English, but you know what I mean? It's more than that, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, don't all people want to be seen? And there's that beautiful story of Hagar when she's running away, having been abused and out in the desert, and she sees God, she's been seen, and she's the one who's honoured with giving the first name to God of El Roy. And I just think the power to listen to people and to know that they've been seen and heard, and that's just a central part of our ministry, whether that's debt help or whatever it is. It's connecting with people who have made a cry for help, however that's looked, and actually an important part is to hear their story and where they've come from, and that in itself is a blessing. And sadly, quite often we get to the point when sometimes we can't entirely help them for whatever reason. It might be because they're just not ready for the actual authorised debt help. There might be some other things. Or sometimes we get to the point when there isn't an obvious solution, because again, there might be other life circumstances going on. But it's given them the chance to connect and be heard, and actually ultimately to be introduced to the one that sees and hears them more than anything else and has known them since creation. So yeah.
I love that. The question I made up with my first guest, which I wanted to ask everybody, and I say it the same way, with no apology, there's lots of things you could do. I mean, you could, I guess in theory, go back to working for Mars and your kids would have free chocolate again, which I'm sure they'll be happy with, as much as they delight in what you do now. But what makes you want to get up every day and serve CAP? I know you sort of touched on it, but I wanted to ask it specifically. What makes you want to work for CAP every day?
So I'm motivated because when you've seen those transformations that I've talked about, when you've seen a transformed life or a transformed church, or you've seen what this does in your own individual discipleship journey, why would I not want that to be everywhere? So I really love thinking about the one, whether that's I'm just Katie, another lady, a client. She had debt help earlier this year from one of our amazing churches. On the first visit, she was actually invited along to Alpha. She was angry, all of the above, very difficult personal circumstances, but the volunteer said, why don't you come to Alpha? That's where you can ask all of these questions about, why is this going on in your life? And she came along, the volunteer picked her up every week, She gave her life to Jesus at the Holy Spirit Day. She was baptised on Easter Sunday, and gave her testimony standing in front of a church in front of families and friends who can't believe the transformation. And I just go, when I've seen that even once, why would I not want to get out of bed and see that happen in so many more places? There's a lot of people. We help a lot of people each year, but there are so many more, and we reckon there's about 1 million people maybe that could really do with the sort of help and wraparound care from the church, and we are only currently in contact with a fraction of those, and what gets me out of bed every day is to close that gap.
That's what, one in 60 people?
Yeah.
Ish, thereabouts. Yes. Yeah, there's much more yet to do.
Yeah. But
there's many more people yet to help. If churches want to get involved and thinking, okay, maybe this is something we can do, how do they begin? I mean, what do they have to actually put in? I mean, is it just they write a check and you fix it, or is there some training? What does a church need to look to be able to do?
Yeah, so there's lots of ways that churches can engage with us, which is great. I'm going to point them to our website, capuk.org/partner, and that can start the journey and see what it looks like. And it can be anything from actually accessing some free tools that we have. We have kids and youth budgeting tools, for example, that you can just sign up, download, they're yours to use in church context, school context, or whatever. So that's a brilliant way to start to explore what we can offer as an organisation. But then actually there's the more structured services, I'd call that, where we give a lot of training and equipping, from money coaching for adults to right through to running a debt centre locally, and everything in between too. So I would just say have a look. There's lots of different ways, but we would love to speak to any church that wants to engage with a CAP service, whatever that looks like in your context, and we would just love to journey with you to really understand your local community and what's going to work well, and actually how this is going to help you achieve the purposes that you've been called by God into your community for. And that would just be such a privilege to do that. And if you're in an area where there is literally no CAP debt help, and you can find that out from our website, just do a postcode search, you'll be able to find. We would especially love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Alison, thank you. Not my sister, just to be clear. Just happen to have the same surname, which is fine. Thank you for sharing some of that. It's great to meet you again.
Yeah, brilliant.
At a big church last year, we've interviewed you, and I loved hearing how you went from working for Miles to CAP. And I loved hearing also the interviews on YouTube, by the way, if you want to listen to it again or watch it, is how much of the knowledge and the skill that God trained you there can be brought forward. My wife always calls it transferable skills, and I think it's such a perfect way of looking at the knowledge you had. But I guess, as your kids would say, it's a shame that the chocolate didn't get transferred, but hey, there are shops available.
Yeah.
It's fine. Alison, thank you.
Thank you so much.
The June issue of Pure Media, the magazine, comes out on Friday the 7th of June, with a whole host of international writers speaking on life, faith, sports, technology, joy and more, from our family to yours. In the June edition, we shine the spotlight on Sherry Seligson, a marine biologist from Florida, and Chris Kerr, who helps us focus and celebrate on dads. Sign up today and enjoy all of this and more at www.puremediathemagazine.com.